Lord in Christ, Most High in Christ, whatever you want to say. Um, I wanted to put together this little class about scripture translation and understanding, because um, I wanted to try to, in a brief, class, try to explain um, about the mistranslations in the Bible, right? And and when man is interpreting the Bible, um, it's going to leave room for error, especially like when you want to translate the Bible from to different languages. Um, because one thing about language, right? If you want to translate something to from, let's say, English to Spanish, right? There are certain phrases in English that are not in Spanish, and because of the cultural differences and just the whole language. I mean, it just the whole you know translation of scripture to different languages is a task. Is a task on its own. So in order to be a person that can have that, that can be able to translate from one language to another, you have to be able to know thoroughly the both languages that you can translate um, from one to another. But even then, like, that can be translation depending on the time. Words transform meaning over time, and they transform meaning over long periods of time. Like, you might have a word 300 years ago, it meant this, but in today's time it means this. So if you're reading something and you might think it's this, but the translation is might be based on a 300, 400-year old interpretation, right? So words change meaning, and translations are hard to do. So why am I saying that? Okay, because understanding the Bible, right? You have to understand that the Bible is written in Old English. It's written in Old English. It's not Old English is not the same as regular English. So in order to be an expert of scripture translation, you really, in order to not make a mistake or limit your mistakes in interpretation, you have to understand Old English. You have to, right? And I'm gonna show you why in the scripture I say that, and I'm gonna prove it to you. Like, when you go to Genesis, the one main scripture that's misinterpreted in the Bible, and because it's the way it's written. It's written in Old English. Now, Old English is English, but it's not the American English um, um, that we speak today. Because so we know that there is a difference between Old English and the English that we speak today, right? There are even words that we speak in regular English that they don't speak in um, Old English, or the English, I should say, that they speak in England, right? It's kind of like regular Spanish. That Spanish in Texas is different from Spanish in New York, or Spanish in Texas is different from Spanish in Mexico, and the Spanish in Mexico is different from the Spanish that's in Spain. Yeah, you could kind of interpret what they're saying, but there are different words that have different meanings, and all Spanish people don't, like, even in Texas, they don't speak the same type of Spanish. Different people that speak Spanish, they have different words. Because I've asked certain people how to say, I've asked Hispanics, right, how to say certain words in Spanish, and believe it or not, that can that can that can be different based on each person you ask on how to say a certain thing, right? So language is confusing. So um, and so what is the difference between Old English and Modern English? I want to Google it so I can read it. Okay, here are three things that and these I googled what's the difference between old and modern English, right? What's the difference between old and modern English? And here's what they say. One, Old English is a synthetic language that relies on declensions, if I'm saying that right, to make meaning. So word order isn't all that important. Notice they said word order is not all that important, right? Modern English has tons of loan words from Romance languages, especially French and Latin. Old English has much more of a Germanic in vocabulary, right? So modern English has singular and plural forms of pronouns. Old English has singular, plural, and dual forms of pronouns. So if you understand English and stuff, um, you took English class, you understand what that means. So right now, I'm going to show you something in the scripture that's mistranslated is because of the English language trying to interpret some in the English language, right? Versus it being written, it's written in Old English, but we're trying to interpret some in English, right? So let me show you something, and I'm gonna show you because right. So when you go to Genesis chapter 25, right? 25 and 25. One of the most misunderstood scriptures in the Bible by a lot of people. I don't know why, how, but it says, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. So now I'm going to break that scripture down to you. It says, and the first came out red, right? All over. So if you stop right there, if you're thinking about in an English term, right? In an English term, the way we process language in America. So to us, if he said, if somebody said, if somebody was to make this, the first came out red all over, right? So automatically, in our mind, in our American English concept, you think, okay, well, his skin must be red. That's what it's talking about. Automatically, you think that, right? But that's not true according to what it's saying. It says, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment. So what came out red, something came out red like a hairy garment. So the scripture is not referring to his skin being red. It's referring to the hair on his skin being like a hairy garment. So that's what the scripture is talking about. Right? Let me see, let me read it again. And the first came out red all over. Just divide it right there. And like a hairy garment. So, what is the adjective in this particular sentence? Um, like a hairy garment. What was the hairy garment? Esau. Esau, he looked, the scripture said he came out red like a hairy garment. You understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to break it down and make it seem as simple as possible because this is something that, a lot of people struggle with and it's lost in kind of like mistranslation, I guess. But a lot of scriptures in the Bible are kind of misunderstood because of the language barrier that we face as so-called African Americans. Because I'm just gonna be honest with you, man. English is probably not our best attribute for as a people. You know, so like when you dealing with languages, man, it's so many different aspects of the Bible that you have to study in order to get understanding. History, language translation, uh, mm, culture, you know, because you're reading some things that happened 2,000 years ago, and then the Bible was what? It was originally written in Hebrew, right? So, it's originally written in Hebrew. So you're trying to take a language and you're trying to make it that's why in the scripture, I'm not in the scripture, in the dictionary, when you look up, it says they took some of the Hebrew and Greek scholars of the day, to translate the Bible from like the Hebrew and to the old English. And like you gotta understand, you gotta look at that thing thoroughly. Like these were scholars, and these people still made mistakes in the Bible. So they did the best they could. So I want to read to you the Prelude of Sorak, because it kind of touches on that and it goes into that. The Prelude of Sorak. Let me see. It says, "Wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and intention, and to pardon us." So right now pardon us means what? Forgive us, right? Wherein we may seem to come short of some words. Why does he say that? It's because like I said before, like some words that are in other languages are not in other languages. You know? Which we have labored to interpret. So they found that, if they labored to interpret these words in the Bible, from the Hebrew to a old English standpoint, it was kind of hard to do. You know, it says, "For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same force in them. And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language. For in the 8 and 38 year coming to Egypt, when Euergetes was king, and continuing there some time, I found a book of no small learning, Therefore, I thought it most necessary for me to bestow some diligence and travail to interpret it, right? Using great watchfulness and skill in that space to bring the book to an end and set it forth for them also which in a strange country are willing to learn, being prepared before in manners to live after the law, right? So, like, when you translating these books, to a people that, you know, it's not easy to do. So that's why you have to, like, not only like study um the scriptures, you have to study, the different languages and the different meanings and sometimes different words and how a word may have transcended, not transcended, but evolved over time. You know what I'm saying? To get like um, a true understanding, right? So when you look at like the Lashawan Kodash, right? Like, well, you say, well, how would you interpret the Lashawan Kodash and understand that, and to try to get the understanding of what the English is saying. So you have to look at other languages. Like the closest language to the Lashawan Kodash will probably be the Arabic language, because the Saudis, because those are the Edomites, and they speak the closest language to Hebrew, if that's not Hebrew in itself. You know what I'm saying? So they are the only people that speak the closest language to the Lashawan Kodash, which furthermore proves that the Arabs are the Edomites. So like when you look at the so-called Native Americans and the Mexicans and things like that, and you look at their native language, it doesn't, it has nothing to do with the Hebraic language. It's not the same. It's different. So, you know, that's what I wanted to go over today. Like the language barrier that we face in these scriptures as Black people. A lot of scriptures, the understanding is lost in translation. So I give you an example. Like the Bible was written in Hebrew, right? Now, and then if you interpret the Bible to Greek, right? You're gonna lose some translation in that scripture, in that translation. You're gonna lose some, because it's not going in the Greek language. It's not gonna have the same, like the scriptures say, the same. What did it say? It's not going to have the same meanings and the same effect as it would in the Hebrew language. Now, try to take that language, right? Okay, now that you interpret it to the Greek, now you take that Greek translation of the Bible, which already has lost interpretation. Now take that translation and translate that into the Old English. Now you're going to have more mistranslation. So now you take that Old English translation. Now you say, hey, okay, now we want to translate into the English in America translation. So that's why you get a lot of these so-called American English translations, Bible, that don't sound like nothing like um, the Septuagint and stuff like that, is because so many things have been lost in translation. It's almost impossible to get an understanding of what the scriptures is trying to say, because it was lost in translation. So that's why you have to be diligent and search out things and study languages and stuff like that to actually get an understanding of because in order to get an understanding of what the scriptures is trying to say. So that's why a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of false doctrines and stuff like that is people's inability, and some people just don't really care to get a real good understanding of what the scriptures is trying to say because of the language barrier that is put into place. It's just something that happened, and it happens with languages. So, like, even with like the way you're going to interpret things based on how they written, and what I brought out to you with the difference between the Old English and the American English, it can really influence your understanding of the translation of the scripture. You can end up like your understanding can be way over here, and you can miss it because of the translation, right? So just like it said in Sorak, like you really have to labor to um, get an understanding. You have to be willing to learn and willing to labor to get an understanding of what the Bible is trying to say, right? So that's what I wanted to convey to the people. Um, I hope y'all understand and what I'm trying to say about the translation of the scriptures. So with that, you know, search it out, seek it out, and get an understanding. That's what it's all about. Okay. So shalom, Most High Christ bless.